Hey guys, what's going on? Here's another video update. I've been working really hard on our animation and what we're going to be using to sort of promote our company. And I've been putting a lot of thought into it. It's a very important piece to me because when we sort of release um, the video is really going to kind of be what stands on its own merits and really introduces to the public and our market what we're sort of generally about. And me and Ian have worked at great length trying to create this one sort of scene where the magic happens, where the user types into their device their query, and we don't want to sort of encumber the user with all of these like dramatic questions. So there has to be something magical that happened. Ian's good idea before was that we did the Minority Report kind of sequence. The reason why that I think kind of didn't work out as well as we wanted was because the Minority Report sequence is an inherently good idea, but to execute that in terms of animation within a very short period of time is going to be expensive and incredibly time consuming, and we don't even, I think, fully have the computing power to kind of do that uh, on its own with kind of all the snapshots and stuff. I've been playing with some ideas of what we could do to really ensure that this video gets polished, and before I kind of proceeded, I wanted to present them to you. So for Jeff's convenience here, I'm just going to kind of play the beginning of this video again, and this is sort of the kind of text that's going to be doing the infographics before we get into sort of the 3D presentation here. Here, the phone sort of appears in 3D, brilliant reflections. I'm glad Ian likes this because I'm a huge fan of it. Here, the user sort of types in their question, okay? And what happens is we have the animation of the screen come in, they type in their question, and the moment they sort of type in their question and get through here, the user is going to be guided through a prompt basically saying submit. So the animation, we are in the process of trying to speed up, but basically right here, he goes boom, why does my battery life stink? Spinny wheel. When spinny wheel happens, Jeff, what we've done is me and Ian have been saying to ourselves, we've got to create a transition here, a point where something magical happens. And I've kind of come up with two other scenarios that we can use. One of them will not cost us any money. The other will cost us a few $100. So let's look at the no money solution, okay? Whenever you're going to have any kind of discussion happening, you need to know who's having that discussion, what's being discussed, and generally speaking, you know, where and why. Like kind of very, very basic elements of storytelling. I propose that right here, it goes cutscene, and then it goes to a more engaging kind of out of this world like environment, a new environment altogether. This is an inherently corporate scene. That's how I've set it up. That's how I've animated it. We have a couple choices. Here's the first choice that is free, okay? Here is a screen cap of a 3D environment I've been working on. I have this already from a previous project. It was never used. So just to clarify, there's nobody else out there using it, okay? Here is an urban landscape. The barn owl that we've chosen, I want to say that I've pretty much perfected his animation. He is really going to have that vibrance and that love and that sort of lovable quality to him. So he's going to move in very fluid and highly animated ways. We will not be able to add sort of voiceover for this kind of video, but I promise you in the video he can do everything that we want him to do without having to use any voiceover, and I think that in a way is going to almost make him more lovable. In subsequent videos we can use morph targeting to get him to talk, but right now, where is he? Here is a urban environment. Kind of contrary to popular belief, barn owls, the name kind of originates because they like to kind of hang out on large kind of high up structures that are typically man-made. They like obviously the rafters in barns, hence the name, but the second most common place for barn owls to live is actually in urban environments. And here we sort of see a urban rooftop that I've constructed inside of our 3D studio, and we have basically an entire landscape up here. Now what we can kind of do for the purposes of our animation is kind of fly in with a dramatic camera angle, and as you can see, this is a full sort of pre-rendered 3D space that I've created, and I've lit sort of for the purposes of this. We can literally have the camera pan up, fly in through this dramatic landscape, and boom, like right there, we can kind of have Oliver basically perched with a laptop. And I think that the magic doesn't necessarily have to be complex. I think something like this, where there is a very well animated owl talking and kind of looking through some data, maybe he opens up his MacBook Pro, which I also have, he cracks open the laptop, navigates to a screen, and really sort of performs a truncated job of a CSR, or maybe he sort of parses that information on his laptop and sends it back. That's one option, but I do think that if we have an environment where he can kind of play and have these discussions, we can build that narrative, and we have to have somewhere to put him. I just kind of can't have him on the back screen. We can take the Herman Miller and just put it up on the rooftop, and that kind of silly, almost nonsensical stuff is what I think is going to make this an interesting video. And when it's rendered, this is an extremely realistic scene, and the computer at work would be able to render the file that I've created here. Here's a look at sort of what that would look like. Now again, everything in the background kind of in this area, we could put a cityscape behind there and it would look extremely authentic and extremely real. So just give it a second for sort of this section to kind of render. Just a moment. As you can see, it's an extremely real setting. We could have them sort of sitting here by the satellites, kind of, pegging off questions and answers, and build a rich, intelligent dialogue that I think would really captivate anybody looking at this video. I really like this scene because I can put up here a very bright, fully 3D moon, and this is really kind of Geico material. Now, if we don't go with the pre-rendered sort of free New York scene, we can do something like this, which I like, but again, it is going to cost us an extra $200. This is sort of a very, very beautiful tree scene, and I think that this is gorgeous because we could do something where he is sort of seen in a setting communicating with people. I really hope that with one of the two options we can kind of work, because we can still have a very beautiful, very lovable Oliver, and I think that that's where the magic kind of comes from, Ian, is what makes this so amazing, and I think what's really going to connect with users and to people actually watching this commercial is the fact that you have this little guy here, and you just love him the moment you see him. We've really corrected his movements here, and you only see sort of a wireframe, but I can assure you that as this gets rendered, he's sitting there and he is full of life. He wants to help our customer. He cares about their questions. He cares about saving businesses money. And I think that's what makes him so special. And as you can see, you love him. He's not even saying anything in that shot, and you just love him. Now, if we don't sort of use the sort of habitat of what apparently a barn owl lives in, namely a rooftop scene, we could, of course, experiment with sort of my earlier suggestion, which is where did I put that here? Which is the sort of captivating magical tree scene. I like this as well because we could do something along the lines where he is sitting perched up inside of the roof and he's basically working on his MacBook Pro. I want this to be believable. I want this to be on the level of Geico. I want it to be on the level of the Coca-Cola commercial. And I believe that our timeline still permits us to get it there. I just think that we have to sort of dig deep, and this weekend I'm kind of working a little bit on some of these things, but I think that we can kind of begin to use some of our pre-made assets to accomplish this. I was working on an email to try to send to you guys, and I believe I have it here. Just bear with me. Here it is. Sorry about that. Okay, so this was some images of another scene we have. It's approximately the same price inside of Theme Forest, but this kind of rich scene, when we depart from that sort of phone scene, if we had a very realistically animated owl in one of these scenes, on a laptop answering customers' questions and maybe looking through a book, it doesn't have to be as complex as a Minority Report scene, I think, to drive that message home. This is really sort of supposed to be a metaphor for all of the complex things our products do behind the scenes to sort of gather that information about a device. And I think that like an owl, who is inherently a symbol of wisdom, would be able to sort of do that just by flipping through a book or, drawing upon his own physical attributes and just being so wise that he already has the answer in his head and he just types it into a laptop. But either way, I'm really advocating for some kind of environment. I've provided you with about 2 to 3 choices. One of them is free. The other is a beautiful sort of nativity scene that's around $200. And I believe this option here, which is the sort of, what do you call it there? The desert tree, which is, again, surprisingly another common sort of environment for barn owls, sort of like savanna, empty regions like this. They kind of live in these little holes. I believe that we have enough time that if I'm taking the computer home at the end of each day, I genuinely believe that I can render these scenes and create something that's very powerful. Thank you very much for letting me take the computer home, but this is kind of the direction I would like to take it in. We don't have to do something as incredibly complex, but we can still create a very believable, very lovable creature that I think will really sort of help become sort of like the patron, I guess, ambassador to like the brand sort of. When you think insurance, you think the Geico guy. More recently, when you think of Coca-Cola, you think of their more sort of creative spots. Similarly, when people think wisdom, I want them to sort of realize that we're wise. We're incredibly intuitive and intelligent. And, yes, we have a brilliant little owl, and he can kind of successfully, I think, communicate that message and sort of be the metaphor for many of the complex things that happen behind the scenes on the user's device that they're not aware of. And I really think that dumbing it down and simplifying it, there's magic there. And I think that there is magic inside of Oliver, and I genuinely believe that he would be able to be used to successfully communicate that message. I provided you with 3 choices. I'm going to provide you with 2 videos. There's going to be one that's going to be the dumbed down sort of just the application showcase with the info graphics that are going to appear before. Ian's had a chance to see some of those. I'm going to have a final demonstration of that this week before you guys take off on Friday. Business cards and website to boot. I've already shot you over a version of the PowerPoint to work with, and I'm going to try to refine that as well. If you want me to put this down and start focusing on those materials, I can, but I really think that nailing this video, nailing the brand, and then nailing the message that gets communicated through the brand and through sort of the integrated environment, I really think is going to be important. It's going to help us have a very powerful video, something that could potentially go viral, and I think something that we're going to be really proud to show to people like Ericsson and many of the partners that we're working with. Anyways, that's my spiel. I hope you guys have a good rest of the weekend. Let me know your thoughts.